welcome to this video on question 4 on the AQA GCSE English and English language papers for the higher tier. This question focuses on analysing language features within the sources you've been given and comparing two of the sources based on the language features that they use. So let's have a look at question 4 and I'll give you the lowdown on the mark scheme and some tips for answering this question. So first of all, this question is worth the most in the reading section of the exam. In order to get full marks, 16 or a band 4 answer, which is 13 to 16 marks, you need to show that your answer is perceptive and detailed. So you need to offer a full and detailed answer, and that means that you're probably going to be writing about 2 to 2.5 sides in your answer booklet. And you need to make sure you focus on language and language features within the sources that you've chosen. You need to make sure that you comment on not only which language features have been used, but the effect of those language features. You need to offer appropriate quotations. You need to make sure that each PQE paragraph has a quotation within it. And you need to explain what is suggested by the words in those quotes and think about what effect it has on the reader. You also, because it's a comparison question, need to focus on comparing the use of language features across the two sources that you've chosen. So you need to make sure you do each one of those things in order to get band 4 on this question. Now we know even before we go into the exam that question 4 will be based on source 3 and one other, which is often your choice. So bearing this in mind, I would always recommend making sure that you highlight or underline any language features as you read through the sources for the other questions. So as you answer question 1, you might want to read through source 1 and underline your read my rules or DeForest techniques. Again, for question 2, you're going to be analysing the language within the headline anyway, so do the same for that. And then source 3, you know you're definitely going to have to answer on the language features question for that one, so make sure you are underlining those as you go. It saves you a little bit of time when it comes to question 4. You need to make sure that you compare. So using words like both, also, on the other hand, however, and in contrast to, tells the examiner that you've looked at the language features used in source 3 and the other one that you've chosen, and you've thought about what is the same, what's similar, and what is different, so that you are comparing and contrasting the language features used and how they have been used. My 3 top language features to comment on are facts, opinions, and powerful verbs and adjectives. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment as to why I've chosen those 3 top language features. And most importantly, you must comment on the effect of the words in the quote that you've chosen. This is really, really important. So you're not just thinking about what is inferred by the words, but you're thinking about why has the writer chosen to use those words and how will it affect the reader. Now we know that this question is worth 16 marks and you get 1.5 minutes per mark, so you've actually got 24 minutes for this question. So that's an awful long time, but you need to make sure you stay focused on the language because you've got a lot to write within that 24 minutes. So if you're unsure about language features, this is what I mean by language features. So you might have learnt DeForest, you might have learnt read my rules, or you might have learnt something else that your teacher has taught you. But these are the language features that you are going to be looking for within the sources. If you want to pause the video and make a note of those now, then that is useful. You need to make sure that you learn these before you go into the exam. I have actually got another video on my channel which is for the foundation paper and it's for the language question on there, but that video does go into much greater depth about language features and each one of those in detail. So what's really great about this exam is even before we go in, we know what source 1, source 2 and source 3 are going to be. Okay, and we know the types of language features that are going to come up in each one of those. So we know that source one is always going to be a news article and it's going to focus on issues and concerns. Now, because it's a news article, we know that it will be chock-a-block full of facts and opinions. And we're also easily going to be able to find powerful verbs and adjectives in there. We may find some alliteration, we may find a pun, okay? But immediately you're seeing that facts, opinions and powerful verbs and adjectives are going to appear within that news article. Now, the same for source 2, we know that that's also going to be a news article and it's often a human interest article. So again, because it's a news article, you'll have facts, opinions and powerful verbs and adjectives. And you need to look at what you've written for question 2 because obviously you analyse the language in the headline. So you might have found alliteration, you might have found a pun, you might have found a rhetorical question. There's lots of other things that you will have found, but again, facts, opinions, powerful verbs and adjectives will have come up within that news article. We also know that source 3 is going to be either an autobiographical or a biographical account. It's a personal account of a journey, whether that's a physical or emotional journey. Now we know that there will be facts and opinions in there about how this person feels or what they've done, where they've been. And we also know that there are going to be powerful verbs and adjectives to describe that journey. There might be emotive language within there and there might be figurative language in there, such as similes and metaphors, again. So, sorry about the mistake about that bottom bit, look at what you wrote for question 2 in the headline. But yes, you need to make sure for source 2, look at what you wrote for question 2. And then with this one, you can see facts, opinions and powerful verbs and adjectives come up yet again. So you're beginning to see a pattern, I hope, that you immediately have got 3 different language features that you can comment on in each of the different sources. And they're easy to compare because they appear in all of the 3 sources. So when we talk about the effect, what do we mean? Well, writers use specific words to create a specific effect. Now, your teacher may have taught you TAP, which is text, audience and purpose, and you need to think about what is the purpose of the text that you have been given. Is it to entertain? Is it to inform, persuade, argue, describe? Think about why have they written it, okay? So therefore, that will link to what the effect on the reader is because the writer will want to have a specific effect on the reader. You must comment on the effect of the words in the quote that you have chosen, okay? You can talk about the effect of the specific language feature, such as a rhetorical question obviously makes the reader consider that particular question. And then you go into detail about the effect of those specific words. So how do they make the reader feel? The other important part of this question is the comparison. So you need to make sure that you use words of comparison and words of contrast, okay? You have to include these in your answer. The examiner needs to see that you have understood the differences and similarities between the sources that you've been given. So I've got an extract here from Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. And what I'd like you to do is have a read through and pick out any language features that you can find within that extract. And I want you to think about what is inferred by those words, so what is suggested, and what the effect on the reader would be, okay? Now, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video because this question's quite extensive. So in part 2, I will go through some of the language features that Bill Bryson has used in this extract, and we will discuss what is suggested and the effect on the reader. In part 2, I'll also show you how you need to structure your answer for this language question, and I will also give you the question to practice on, the 16-mark question at the end, the exercise I always give you in my lessons. So make sure you subscribe to my channel, Ace Your Exams or Miss W on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Ace Your Exams, and if you've got any questions then please do tweet me. and head over to aceyourexams.wordpress.com for free downloads. Thanks for listening.